Hey, you're going to have to stop. Pfalzgraf turned you in. Hey, it's me, Ken Pfalzgraf, Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees, bringing you my monthly recap video, this time, June 2017. So before I dive head first into that empty pool, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Once again, I'm Ken Pfalzgraf. I'm not speaking for the entire school board, just me and my perception of how things went in June 2017. So, again, if you want to know what the other school board members think, talk to them. I'm not going to speak for them. It's just me. Now, housekeeping down here, like, dislike, comment, and I'm going to be talking about some things that are going to have links down below in the box way down there. And so if you see something that interests you that I'm talking about, just click on the link. Wardrobe change, action. All right, this juicy tidbit is about an editorial that was sent to 2 local newspapers and only printed by 1. The editorial was by local resident Max Duran, who, in addition to being, like I said, a local resident, is also a former school board member with Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District and a lifelong career school facilities builder. Now, what Max did in his editorial was talk about DSA and the recent shutdown of the Acton School renovation, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it, project. That shutdown has pushed the opening of the school, instead of opening this fall in August when everybody goes back to school, into either much later in the year or even next year. And the end result of that is that Meadowlark School remains crowded, and the traffic situation at Meadowlark School, again, is like the 405 about 8:20 in the morning. Now, Max's piece describes what is required of a school construction project, again, from the viewpoint of someone who has actually been a DSA inspector and who has built schools and is familiar with what it takes to get schools inspected and signed off on for student and teacher occupancy. As you read Max's piece, you'll see that this didn't just happen this year or even last year when the project actually started, when the money became available to fund this renovation through, I believe it's actually excess special education funds from the charter schools. But this problem we're having right now is actually a snowball that's built up over the last decade. So you've got a series of past projects that weren't signed off on and approved by DSA, even dating back to other superintendents, I'm not sure how many. So what Max does is he talks about the history of the project, goes back to other parts that have led up to, again, like this snowball. It keeps getting bigger and bigger, and ultimately we're left with the problem to deal with now. Now, whether you like Max or not, whether you believe what he's saying or not, it matters nonetheless. Max has a right to put his opinion out there, and when he notified me that he sent it to both papers, I loaded it up on my page. You can read it yourself. There's a link below, and there's also a link below to the newspaper article, or the newspaper that actually did print Max's piece. So to the newspaper that printed Max's piece, thanks a lot. Good for you. You make stuff available to the community. The community is big enough and old enough to make their own decisions, and plus it helps people understand what happened. And, you know, it gets away from the blame game, and there's a line in the sand. And so thanks to you for printing that. To the other paper that didn't print the article, I want to thank you too, because you've been here for the past 10 years. I think you've covered a lot of this stuff. And I think that when I grow up and become an adult and can actually think for myself, I'll look back at this and I want to thank you for packaging this up in a palatable way that keeps me from being concerned or the truth or something. But anyway, yeah, thank you very much. Wait a minute. Did he just say what I think he just said? Yeah, cowboy and king of ideas. What do you know about anything anyway? Here's what I know. A couple things that were pointed out in Max's article. You can spin it any way you want. You can talk about costs. You can talk about unnecessary costs. But the bottom line is you cannot put our kids and our teachers into classrooms that are not appropriately permitted and inspected. And furthermore, as the clerk of the board, when it comes time for me to sign the paper, yeah, it says Ken Pfalzgraf, clerk. If I'm still the clerk, I'm not signing it until it's inspected. Take that to the bank. Now the good news is, in July, we have a contract interim superintendent coming in that has DSA and construction experience. In fact, like Max, they've held a DSA inspection certificate themselves, and in addition to that, they have a great amount of budgetary experience, fiscal, running things, and both of those are sorely needed right now. More about that individual in an upcoming video. So now, let's move on to something more pleasant briefly, and then we'll get back into the mess. I want to preface this by saying that I'm not on the school board because I'm an educator, that I know anything about education really. You might have guessed that, right? Now, when I ran for school board and I was hanging up my signs, what stuck in my head was, what is it that's going to put me here that's going to help me make a difference in this district? So when I was out hanging up my campaign signs and thinking about what is it that I really have to offer, it comes down to one thing. I am a government, public sector employee. I work for a top-notch public agency with a world-renowned brand. I've been doing that for 16 years. I am accountable at work for my program, the employees of my program, their outputs, the contractors, everything. And there's no wiggle room in my workplace to make mistakes because the constituents there expect top-notch service without excuses. Now, I know what that looks like, and I sure know what it doesn't look like. So, me being on the board has given me the opportunity, I think, to advance some of those things I came forward to do. And if you read my campaign brochure, it said that I wanted to reduce fiscal dependence on out-of-boundary district charters. If you've been watching my videos, you see what's going on right now. We'll have a little blip here in a minute. That we're going to return the district focus to local students. I don't expect charter school expansion to be at the very top of what our goals are, our priorities. And then finally, I want to improve our agency brand in the greater educational marketplace. I don't want to be known as, yeah, them guys out there that sponsor anybody or blah, 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 or everybody leaves it. No, I work for a top-notch brand. My resume is shinier than the Queen of England's crown. Believe you me, I know what it looks like. Enough about me. Sitting on the board has given me some insights to things, and it's been very satisfying to me in ways that I kind of suspected I would learn some things, because I got everything to learn about education, believe me. Now, this will be the final set of shout outs for the 16-17 school year. And I want to make it a good one here this time because, well, they're all good, but this needs to be significant. So this shout out is going to focus on some things I saw and learned at our recent commencement ceremonies at all three of our schools. And I want to talk a little bit about one of the district's employees. First, I want to give each and every student in the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District my thanks for attending schools here in our district. In today's educational marketplace, there are lots of choices. There are charter schools, there's school districts there, everywhere around us. And I'm glad that you choose to come to our schools. Each one of you is unique. You have something to offer our district that nobody else can. And coming together as a team is what's going to make us successful. Next, I had the opportunity to attend all three commencement ceremonies, Meadowlark, High Desert, and Vasquez High School. I want to thank everybody who made those things come together. There were fans for us that were hot. There was a medal handed out by one of the parents to all the kids at High Desert. There was just a lot of work going on in the background that nobody knows about. So thank you to everybody who selflessly gave their time to make these commencement ceremonies a success. Next, I want to talk about the students that gave speeches at the commencement ceremonies. Public speaking scares some people worse than anything. Me, I won't shut up. I talk in my sleep. But it's very difficult for some people to get up in front of everyone and talk about how they feel and what's important to them. Thanks to each and every one of you. I enjoyed so much hearing your personal thoughts about your educational experience in our district and what the future holds for you and your classmates. Thanks again. Next, my last shout out goes to Mrs. Kim Lytle. Mrs. Lytle has served as the interim superintendent for the district from the time that she swore me in when the former superintendent resigned just before I was seated on the board, and she served the board and the district up until the end of June. First, Mrs. Lytle, I want to say to you, above a lot of things, I respect someone that can make a good choice in vehicles. And Mrs. Lytle, you're great at picking vehicles, because I noticed your vehicle, unlike some, your vehicle knows how to drive to its parking spot at the district office on a daily basis and stay there till the workday is over, and sometimes even beyond. So hey, great. Next, for the better part of 5 years, I've been harping and harping. Let's get the agenda on the internet 72 hours before the meeting. When it says enclosure or staff report, let's actually make those reports available to the public. And about the time that Mrs. Lytle took over officially as interim superintendent, about the 1st of February, those things have been up on the internet without fail since then. So my goal of transparency, improved transparency, has really been enhanced by your efforts, Mrs. Lytle. Thank you. Next, you're responsive. When I get on a kick about something, I want to see the papers for the building. I want to see what the budget numbers look like for the charter schools, all those things. I can be a demanding person. I'm one of the people that don't give up until I'm informed so I can make decisions. And Mrs. Lytle, you've been responsive, always been responsive, and I thank you for that. And finally, it might not seem like a big deal to everybody, but it's everything to me. I like a person that's forthright. If I ask you a question and the answer is good, bad, or ugly, and I get the answer, I can appreciate that. So I appreciate that probably the most about you, Mrs. Lytle. And something that will stick in my head as long as I sit on this board is after the last commencement ceremony, we went around to every school site, you and I, and every door that was open. You walked in, we walked in, and I watched you thank the kids for coming to school at our schools, and to thank each one of the teachers for giving us a good year of work at the school district. That's really meaningful. That's a sign of a leader, and that's the best going away gift you could have given us. That means the teachers and the kids in the district. So I was really proud to be there with you when that happened. Thank you. So at the end of the day, everybody, I hope when you see Mrs. Lytle, you'll give her a brief word of thanks and say, hey, you came in unexpectedly. You filled some shoes during a time when Acton School was going on, the budget was going on, there's some turmoil going on and some turbulence, but thank you for being there in service in the district. Now, in the last meeting in June 2017, there was some ruckus in the school board meeting about legal issues between a couple of the other board members and myself. And I'm not going to let this slide based on just what was chosen to be covered in the local newspaper, at least one of them. Now, those issues are charter school applications, where students want to enroll in a charter school, and the forms that they fill out. And the second one was the charter petitions or material revisions the board receives. From the onset of charter schools, some critics of charter schools have accused charter schools of creaming off the best students. So simply what that means is highly motivated parents and highly motivated students seek out what they appear to be the best schools. They go to those schools, and collectively those students tend to produce really high scores. So if you got a group of students in an area and they're all coming to this charter, sometimes what happens is the scores look really elevated for that charter. Well, meanwhile, the schools they've left behind, the lower scoring students, their scores tend to be artificially magnified by the loss of the higher performing students. This problem is so prevalent that the ACLU issued a paper on how some charter schools set up barriers, is the kind of way they put it. In other words, some students are going to look at the charter school and say, that's not for me. Examples of those barriers are questions about your home language, whether you've had an IEP, 504, special ed services, asking you to write an essay, so someone can look at that essay and determine what your level of proficiency is, asking for things like what's your grade point average, have you ever been expelled for a behavioral issue, whether or not your parents, in lieu of giving money to the school, are willing to donate X amount of time in lieu of making donations, those types of things. So the ACLU, the California ACLU, did a paper on this in 2016 and described there's a ton of these schools that do these type of things and they're exclusionary. Now, these problems are so prevalent that best management practice for oversight of charters includes an annual look at the forms that the enrollment forms, intent to enroll forms that charters use. So the regulatory agency that oversees our district, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, or LACO, they oversee charters as well, and they have a best management list of oversight of processes that are to be followed every year. And for example, on their checklist is the copy, to have on file a copy of a charter's intent to enroll application enrollment forms, and that's due August 1st, or typically before students come in to actually enroll. Now, this may seem like splitting hairs, but there is a difference between a pre-enrollment application and an enrollment form. So when you come into the district to enroll, that means I'm walking in the door, I'm bringing proof that I live in the district, or in some cases I have a transfer, signed a transfer from another district. I come in and I'm enrolling today. That's very different than I'm going to put in an application and then you look it over and determine what I may or may not need. When you enroll, there is a language survey. There is a request if you have a special education IEP or a 504 for a medical thing, or other types of supports you may need. A pre-enrollment application is something completely different. Asking the same questions before you're actually enrolling the student, that's where the ACLU concern comes in. So when you raise concerns to people, you're asking questions about IEPs, you're asking questions about 504s, you're attempting to do a language survey before you're actually enrolling the student, and the key word here is application, pre-enrollment application instead of enrollment form. Anyway, when you ask these people, oh, we're just trying to get a handle on what services a student will need. Yeah, okay, fine. Or we haven't turned anyone away. Well, okay, cool. Or we don't turn anyone away till we have a waiting list. Okay, that's normal. That's how charter schools work. But the point everyone is missing there is what barrier effect that has on someone who might be looking at the charter school. When you're looking at a form that says, for example, I'm reading this one right off the form. I sign a date here. I certify that my student has never received special education services of any kind. I further certify that my student does not have a 504 plan. Wait a minute here. If I'm a parent of a student that has either of these things, how welcoming is this? So you are never able to gauge the effects of questions like this on special ed people, on people that need those types of supports. And then the language surveys on these forms, they basically tell an English learner, or could tell an English learner, hey, this isn't the place for you. So it's not that you're accusing someone of excluding people, it's the fact that these barriers, perceived or not, exist. And the ACLU says, nah, you really shouldn't be doing this. This isn't good practice. Now, there's a big difference between, say, getting a speeding ticket and then doing something that the ACLU comes in on. The ACLU comes in on stuff that goes to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice looks at things like, oh, you may have violated this person's civil rights. When you have a finding in a Department of Justice case, that typically catapults into a civil situation where people become financially liable. And that's what I'm looking for on this, is the district put in a position by an errant word or an errant question by one of its charter schools that could put you, my constituent, me, the board member, and our district in a position of financial peril. Not to mention, do we want this kind of reputation that maybe we're setting up barriers, perceived or not? I sure don't. So where the mess started on this case was I asked the interim superintendent, and I copied a lawyer on it, said I want an opinion as to whether this charter school is in following best practice by asking these questions in a pre-enrollment application. Now, there was a lot of back and forth when the attorney looked at it, and I can't get into all those details because, of course, we don't talk about those things. Shh. But at the end of the day, the form was changed. The application thing was taken away. The question about I certify that my child, what was it again? I certify that my student has never received special educational service of any kind, and I further certify that my student does not have a 504 plan. So, those things came out of the application. And until they did, I didn't want them in our hallways. Once this was fixed, once the attorney said, okay, I'm okay, they were put back. Everything's great, right? Well, apparently not, because during public comment, one of the board members chastised me for calling an attorney. I'm acting alone. I'm contacting regulatory agencies to find out what protocol is. And it was one of the board members, the board president, said I was in poor form to contact these people to find out exactly what was going on. So why is everybody getting so upset about me making sure that our ducks in a row so we don't expose ourselves to legal liabilities? We're coming in, ex-employees are coming in, offering programs that they couldn't offer while they were employees, but the minute they're private sector people, here they come. Now we can afford it, and now we're having 6 days a week. So I think there's probably some more attention there that should be given, other than whether or not I'm making sure that the district is legally protected. Yeah, I'm lit up. Can you tell? Next thing, charter petitions. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you've been listening to my campaign, and for 3 or 4 years before this, I've been writing editorials that say, hey, let's make sure this stuff is legal before we go into guinea pig land and end up with $350,000 worth of legal fees because somebody thought, well, I think we can test that. And I was highly critical of that. Well, someone would say, well, you spent $350,000 to make $3 million. Okay, that makes it legal. I can think of some things there that I don't even want to talk about where the same theories are in place. So I've been harping and saying, if you're going to review these charters and they're out of boundaries and the Shasta ruling come in and affected all this, people are coming forward now, oh, I want to change to this configuration. We're not really a resource center. We're doing this. Who knows? There's so many charters coming in, especially right now, and revisions and changes of things that you really can't keep track of it. We got one person looking after 15 or so charters and all of the campuses that go under each of those charters. One person. So after the Shasta ruling, I made the statement to everybody, including the board president, listen, do me a favor and make sure that the legal company that contracts, our legal firm that contracts our legal services, issues a statement that says that this charter petition or this material revision or whatever it may be has been compared against the Shasta ruling, and we don't see a legal problem for the district here. But at the end of the day, all I really wanted was your signature, legal counsel, that says we've looked at this, in our best opinion, this is legal. There's no legal problem here. And if there is, guess what? I come back to you and say, hey, you said this was fine. You defend us. I'm just trying to get away from the days of, oh, I didn't know, $350,000 later, the same legal firm that gave us the opinion in the first place is now defending us in court and making a living doing it. That's what I'm trying to avoid, to get right to the chase. Now I understand when I was outside the board and I was critical of 350 and 400,000 here and all that, that somebody may have been offended by that. And now when I call an attorney and say, hey, let's make sure we're safe, there's an opportunity there to switch the tables and make it look like I'm running up the attorney fees. But I'll guarantee you, my phone call about this one charter, and the attorney firm, by the way, said, yeah, it looks good. It looks like it's in shape with this. It's an online charter. There's no geographical boundaries. I mean, 2 sentences, everybody's fine. And we're all assured that everything is good. We can all sleep well. And plus it improves our reputation out there that we're not doing stuff in a shady way. So I don't know what that cost, but I'll guarantee it didn't cost $350,000. All right, that's it for June 2017. I am out for the summer, as you should be. I'm going to send you out with some music that you're probably going to like. It's going to set your summer off. Take off the suit and tie, relax, and do what I've been doing this whole video. See you later.